Hey garden friends, welcome back to Garden Faithfully. Bob here, and today we're moving beyond the patience we talked about last time to dive into another cornerstone of successful gardening and intentional living: planning. Remember how 2019 was my crash course in patience? Well, 2020 and 2021 became the year of blueprints and big dreams. Armed with a little experience and a lot more humility, I dove headfirst into planning. I spent countless hours researching, sketching out garden layouts, mostly in my head, and creating a plan for our yard and then the garden. It was like designing a roadmap for my yard and garden, a way to turn the pending chaos of the looming weeds into something more intentional, purposeful, and beautiful. I started to ask questions like, what do I really want from my garden? Is it just fresh veggies, or is it a haven, place to experiment, maybe even a way to share God's abundance with others? It wasn't until later that this plan morphed into a means of approaching self-sustainability, but that was months and years away. This whole planning process got me thinking about the bigger picture, about how God providentially guides each of our lives. Jeremiah 9:11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." This passage was written to his people Israel, who often sought their own way, just like I can be stubborn sometimes. But God is so good at overcoming our unwillingness and redirecting our steps. That's a powerful promise, isn't it? But just like with a garden, it takes effort on our part to discover and align ourselves with those plans. That's where planning comes in for life, just as it did for my garden. I did plenty of planning, dreaming, and preparing for the future. It struck me many times how important this is in life: planning and perseverance. This reminded me of a quote often attributed to Martin Luther: "Even if I knew that tomorrow the world would go to pieces, I would still plant my apple tree." While it doesn't appear in Luther's writings, it beautifully captures the essence of his teachings on faith, hope, and stewardship of creation. It's a call to action even in the face of uncertainty. Now, I'm not talking about rigid, controlling plans. I'm talking about seeking God's guidance, asking for his wisdom as we make decisions. After all, God gave us nature for a reason. It's a living testament to his wisdom and goodness. We're called to work with nature, not against it, learning from its rhythms and patterns. As Proverbs 1:7 reminds us, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. Suddenly, it wasn't just about my desires, but about how my garden could be a tool for serving others, for reflecting his creativity and generosity, and a living classroom to understand his ways. This shift in perspective led to some very practical planning considerations, both for my garden and my yard. The first question, where is the sun? Observing how sunlight moved across my property throughout the day was crucial. Understanding this helped me choose the right plants for the right places. A second question, how big do these trees get? It's easy to get caught up in the beauty of a sapling, but I had to consider the mature size of trees and shrubs. Planting them too close to the house or each other could lead to problems down the road. If I put them in the wrong place, in 5 to 10 years, they might have shaded out my garden. That's a mistake I definitely wanted to avoid. This led to another important question. Where do I get water? Planning for irrigation was essential, especially in our dry climate. I had to figure out where to place my garden so it could be easily watered, whether by hand or with a sprinkler system. You'll probably see my hose line snaking all over the yard in some videos. And that's with water access to 90% off my growing areas. I purposefully want to be out there watering, checking, and maintaining my awareness of what's going on in the garden. That's 95% of pest control. Knowing you have a problem. A last question I considered, what about the septic leach field? Understanding potential hazards like septic systems or underground utilities was crucial for both safety and the health of my plants. You don't want big trees with invasive roots getting down there and interrupting things. That can lead to some costly repairs, not to mention digging up your entire yard. I made a lot of decisions with these factors in mind. The list goes on and on. Planning a garden and landscaping a yard involves many decisions, but each one is an opportunity to seek God's wisdom through nature. The more I planned, the more my purpose for gardening solidified. It wasn't just about avoiding weeds or getting a harvest. It was about creating a space where I could connect with God's nature, learn from His creation, and share His love through the fruits of my labor. It was a hope for a beautiful space to see nature, in all its aspects, coming to life every spring. Little did I know the purpose for which I was making the garden and yard would become an ongoing endeavor, an every year planning event that continues to unfold. I want to encourage you to take some time for planning in your own garden and in your life. Do this with now, the present, later, the near future, and much later in mind. Today's sapling could be tomorrow's towering problem if it's not in the right place. Today's shortcut might become tomorrow's costly headache. As they say, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. You only need to pay that bill once to see the wisdom in that planning advice. What are your goals? What are you hoping to cultivate? Seek God's guidance through prayer, look to His nature for inspiration, and see how He might lead you to unexpected blessings and a deeper understanding of His purpose for you. I can't tell you how many times I've dug a hole, planted a tree, and it struck me. I'm doing this for my grandkids who will climb this tree, eat these apples, and lay under its shade. Today, it provides none of this, but I'm not doing it for today. My planning has me living in tomorrow, not just the present. Thanks for joining me on this journey of planning with purpose. Remember, it's not about perfection, it's about progress and about trusting God's plan for our lives. In the next episode, we'll dig into how purpose shapes our gardening decisions. Until then, may your gardens and your faith flourish. Take care to faithfully garden and garden faithfully.